What's up, everybody? Nick Whalen, Alex Barutha here from RotoWire, talking waiver wire for fantasy basketball. I'm going to start with a handful of guys who are higher rostered, at least on ESPN. They're probably even higher rostered on some sites like Yahoo or Fantrax. But Scoot Henderson, Christian Braun, Trace Jackson Davis, Onyeka Okongwu, Tari Eason, Collier Ware, all these guys well under 50% rostered right now in ESPN leagues. So make sure you double check, just in case, especially if you're in a shallower league. Any of those names could still be out there. Okongwu obviously looks like he is going to take over at least as the full-time starter for now in Atlanta. Clint Capella, expiring contract. Wouldn't be surprised if they're shopping him ahead of the deadline. So he should absolutely be rostered. And Collier Ware, Alex, suddenly 5-1 to win Rookie of the Year after like 2 good games.
Yes, I mean, he got the start next to Adebayo against Portland. Adebayo didn't play that well, and Ware played over him for a little while in that game, put up 20 and 15 with 2 blocks. Game before that, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks. I mean, I think from some of that was game script for both of these games, but I still think Ware, given what's going on with Miami and Jimmy Butler and all this stuff, I could see Collier Ware seeing basically 25 minutes a game at least from here on out.
Yeah, I think he's played so well that you have to think about it. Miami is a team that in all likelihood will be in some sort of transition a couple weeks from now at the deadline, but they're looking for something, right? I know Hero was out the other night. Like you said, Bam has been down a little bit lately. Butler suspended again. I mean, there are some caveats you could throw out there as far as the rotation changes, but Eric Spoelstra kind of feels like he's just throwing things at the wall right now, and Collier Ware is sticking. So make sure you go grab him. Other guys who were, hovering around like 20% rostered for me in ESPN leagues. Jaden McDaniels is out there in a bunch of leagues, had a big scoring game last time out, but really you're in it for the defensive stats, playing a ton of minutes. Minnesota has a pretty short rotation. They're without Dante DiVincenzo for the next month plus. I was a little surprised to see both Malik Beasley and Ausar Thompson under 25% rostered as well.
McDaniels is interesting because, I mean, Minnesota, like you mentioned, without DiVincenzo for a while, and over the past 5 games, McDaniels is averaging 38 minutes a game. And for McDaniels, you are rostering him for his defense, but if he's going to play 38 minutes a game, he's just going to get 13, 14 points a game. And for a lot of people, that takes him from streamer to like, I just got to have this guy on the back end of my roster for the rest of the season. And then, I mean, you mentioned it with Ausar Thompson. The Pistons continue to play well. They got a win last night in Atlanta. You'd still like more consistent scoring out of Ausar and even more minutes because he's having trouble getting over 25. But the defensive stats and the rebounding he can give you on any given night makes it worth it.
Nick Richards still hanging around under 20% rostered in ESPN leagues. Again, that number will likely be higher on other sites, but he's going to be out there. It's been some ups and downs so far. It really doesn't seem like he's going to be very involved offensively, which not a surprise given his skill set and given the pieces on that Suns team. But he's in the starting lineup. He's playing enough minutes where he's going to give you rebounds. I mean, it wouldn't be shocking to me if he was hovering around, at least 8 or 9 boards, maybe even more, if he's going to be playing about 25 minutes and on some nights more than that. Hasn't been blocking shots at a crazy high rate, but should be a 1 to 2 block per game guy. So if Nick Richards is out there in your league, I would definitely grab him. I want to ask you about Dalton Knecht, Alex, who has not been super fantasy relevant for the last month or so. Obviously had his run early on, but I've been sniffing around, some fake trades, doing a lot of pre-trade deadline reading. Could Dalton Knecht be sent out as a sweetener in, say, a Colin Sexton or a Walker Kessler type of deal? Is there a world in which he lands on a bad team and all of a sudden he's playing 25, 30 minutes?
It's funny because I was doing a guest spot on Sirius XM last night, and our great friend Alan Seslowski was filling in for you and asked me what the Lakers have that they could trade. And I said,
really?
Lakers fans aren't going to want to hear this, but Dalton Knecht might be on the table. Yeah, I think all those names you mentioned, Clint Capella, maybe if they can't get Kessler, I think is an option. And Knecht hasn't really been in the rotation in a meaningful way for the Lakers. I mean, he got 8 minutes the other night against Washington. I mean, they won that game 111-88, and Knecht played 8 minutes. Yeah. So, it would not shock me if he ended up in a trade.
Just something to keep an eye on, especially if you're in a deep league, if you have a roster spot or two that you just don't feel great about, somebody you're going to be dropping anyway, and you got a spot to burn, maybe pick him up just under the idea that perhaps he could end up in a better spot. I mean, I don't know if it's likely, but it's very possible. I have Lonzo Ball on my list. Yep. He's been healthy for the most part, certainly healthier than I thought he would be. Really, since Thanksgiving, I think he's only missed 4 or 5 games. Back-to-backs are still going to be an issue. Like there's always going to be that concern of a re-injury, but the minutes have been there for the most part. He's given you plenty of steals as he was, 2-3 years ago before all this knee stuff started. Not a high volume scorer. He hasn't been shooting it great from 3, but you're looking at some assists, you're looking at some rebounds, and really the defensive stats with him. We got to talk about Isaiah Collier as well. Still 7% rostered right now on ESPN. He did move back to the bench last night. Like the Jazz got a bunch of their pieces back. He has the same roster rate in ESPN leagues as Bronny James. That should not be the case. They were teammates last year at USC. I don't trust the Jazz to stay healthy. I don't trust the Jazz to play their guys, even if they are healthy. They're a team that I think will have some moving pieces at the deadline. So even if Isaiah Collier is temporarily taking a step back, he's somebody I'm still pretty interested in.
100%. I think, like you mentioned, the Jazz have been resting players, like actually listing them under rest, like Kessler and there's somebody else was listed, maybe Sexton. But yeah, if you have the roster spot to burn, I would hold Collier. I would not drop him because I think past deadline he could go back to starting. And when he started, he averaged, again, 10 points on fairly inefficient shooting. That's fine. But the 8 assists when he was starting, that's huge, right? That's really hard to find off the waiver wire.
Can I interest you in some Wendell Carter? 3 double-doubles in his last 4 games. That has coincided with Goga Bitadze missing time. He's likely to miss his 5th straight game now with a concussion. Obviously, when Bitadze comes back, there's going to be a problem here. Bitadze's been the better player, but Carter's always out there staring at you on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I mean, he's a streamer, right? Because he'll go through stretches where he does not play well at all. Then he'll go through stretches where he's just like a double-double machine. I wish there was some consistency there. But actually, as a starter on the whole year, he's averaging, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. That's fine. But yeah, when he's playing well, when he has the opportunity, he should be picked up.
All right, so I have some rapid fire names that I'll save. But anybody else from your list that you want to highlight?
I mean, it's guys I think I've mentioned before. I think Cason Wallace is still worth rostering if you need the steals from Oklahoma City. I know Caruso is back, but Wallace he's still been solid offensively. In addition to giving you the steals, I had Lonzo on my list. Nick Smith Jr. for the Charlotte Hornets, who, Brandon Miller is going to be out a while. And Smith, I don't have a ton of faith in him being like, he's not going to win your league. He's not going to be like the best waiver wire pickup or anything like that. But if you're in a deeper format and you need points and threes, Nick Smith's going to be there for you. And then Naji Marshall, who I've mentioned before, and I think who's questionable or out with an illness, should be back soon-ish. But with the Mavericks missing Derek Lively seemingly until the playoffs, they're going to need more production out of, and they've gotten a PJ Washington, but Naji Marshall is a bigger body that can sort of fill some front court minutes for them as well.
Yeah, I like that call quite a bit. Gafford was just getting bullied the other night against Minnesota. It's still a very good player, obviously, and a better Lively replacement than Naji Marshall. But Marshall could play 3 or 4 spots, right? I mean, I think he's going to see minutes for this team, especially with Luka out. I'll give you some names here. Guerschon Yabusele. Who knows what's going on with Embiid? As long as Embiid is out, Drummond's missed time. There's just 3 or 4 guys out every single night for the Sixers, and there's going to be ups and downs with Yabusele, but for the most part, the minutes have been there. I mentioned Duncan Robinson every week. He's hit 11 threes on 19 attempts over his last 2 games. Jimmy Butler's currently suspended. He might not be in the team in 2 weeks. Heat's rotation, like we said, kind of feels like it's open to interpretation every night. Corey Kispert still out there just about everywhere if you need some threes. Jaylen Wells, I think, still a little under rostered. The numbers maybe aren't as big as you would think, but averaging 13 points, 3.5 boards, 2.5 threes over the last 15 games. Luke Kennard, another option in Memphis if you need some threes. And then you mentioned Nick Smith, who I'm glad we touched on. The only other name I have, Cam Whitmore. Still getting his numbers, even with Tari Eason back.
Getting his numbers, man. And he's someone, too, that's been floated around in the trade conversations as well, because Houston has so many assets. And I think Whitmore could end up going to a team that's rebuilding, and that team could give Cam Whitmore 30-35 minutes and say, look, you're a number 1, number 2 scorer. So someone worth, I think, investing in now. And if he doesn't get traded after the deadline, maybe just drop him.
All right, that's going to do it for our weekly waiver wire video. We'll be doing these every week throughout the NBA season, coming up on the trade deadline. So some big waiver wire weeks around the bend here. Make sure you're subscribed to RotoWire on YouTube, both the RotoWire main channel, RotoWire Fantasy Basketball. You can find all of our videos there, our standalone content, all of our podcasts stream live, and they're archived on the YouTube channel. And lastly, as always, rotowire.com/try, free access to everything on our site, rotowire.com/TRY.